Hi, everybody. Welcome to Evolve, where we focus on the evolution of leadership. But I'm really excited to have our special guest today. Lorraine, do you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your company and yourself?
Sure. I'm from Hong Kong, first of all. I'm so glad to have me on your show. I set up my own company, Ascension Associates, around 4 years ago, where we were set up to tackle the hiring issue from a holistic perspective. Because I truly believe that because my background is in pure headhunting, I don't think headhunting is the only solution anymore to a lot of the hiring issues. And plus, we can see a lot of on the ground insights when we are doing the real work. So I kind of like reverse engineer the whole thing and say, I'm going to set up my own company and solve this issue from the way back by, first of all, doing all the strategy implementation, talent acquisition design to, at the end, if you still need me to find someone, I'll go find someone for you. So that's Ascension Associates in a nutshell.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think a lot of people are talking about recruiting and kind of the challenges today. What are the primary qualities you're looking for in candidates right now?
There are three things that I would definitely be looking for candidates, especially for the ones that are making a higher level of salary and seniority. Number one is emotional resilience. We've been talking about this for a few years now, but the thing is, in reality, we do see a lot of grown-ups, especially grown-ups who are making quite a lot of salary, are not necessarily demonstrating enough emotional resilience, right? From my own hiring in my own company to me hiring for my own clients. Why I say emotional resilience is the number one important thing is the leaner our organization have become,
Mhm.
you will find out that actually the more nitty-gritty our workload have also become.
Mhm.
There are a lot of the times where people are making, yes, higher salary and a bigger title and really, more power, but it comes with a lot more nitty-gritty work as well. So it's not like when they were educated like 20 years ago, when you make a certain title, when you make it there, you have a team of secretaries and whatever to support you. It's not gone. So that's where I mentioned the emotional resilience because it's a very steep learning curve for a lot of these people, especially with a lot of technology automation.
Mhm.
And so when these people climb up to a certain senior level, they realize, oh my God, I still need to roll up my sleeves. It's not just emotional resilience, but also their ego. It goes hand in hand,
For sure.
right?
Can you give us an example or a definition of what that is? I mean, what is emotional resilience?
When they realize that when they got into a new job, it's more nitty-gritty and more rolling up the sleeves than they think.
So, do their emotions overtake their responsibilities?
Yeah, I'm saying that they have to take a balance.
Yes.
Because sometimes when we place a senior candidates inside a lot of organizations, what we realize is, they have this kind of expectation and impression about the title and what their career should look like. And so they become, like an adult babies, kind of like throwing things off the cram. When they realize when they get into a new job, they realize, oh my God, Kim, I need to do this still. I need to kind of like liaise with so many people. Oh, I am out of the job. And you'll be surprised. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Stop acting as if you are like a baby. You're in an
Got it. So,
you're
I
making
think what
mistakes.
you're
Yeah,
saying to me is that they don't want to do things that are beneath them at that point. So, it's
exactly.
kind of like they're so high on their high horse that the job does entail doing other things. Like they're not willing to do what it takes to help everybody. They just want that high title and only do
Exactly.
those high level things, and everything else is just
Exactly.
below them. Okay. And you know what?
Exactly.
I think I see that mostly, especially in the small to medium sector, because what happens is you don't have enough depth in the organization. The organization's not large enough to sustain, for instance, having a CFO and a controller and a director of finance. So what happens is when you hire that CFO, the CFO still has to do the job of the controller and the director of finance. And for those small to medium sized companies, you have to do all three to be in that role. But in the large company, there's three different people. So I think it's like it's hard to probably weed out, right? Can you do and are you willing to do everything?
In our cases, it's also the same for bigger organizations
Okay.
because in a lot of organizations, there still have to be a lot of coordination roles, especially if you are in a regional setting.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
so when certain people go to a certain level, when they reach certain age, certain income bracket, they'll be like, no, these sort of liaison work and whatever, it's not really for me. And then we'll be like, no, we exactly pay you to do that because there's a lot of stakeholder management and you need a lot of life experience to deal with a lot of cultural nuances. And
Yeah.
that's what we mean by emotional resilience. It's, essentially when things don't go your way, can you pick that up and say, okay, let me bite the bullet. Let me give it at least 6 months ago and be professional and say, okay, is this really something that I cannot take and not align with my career development? Or is it just the beginning for me to kind of like start settling in a new job?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well,
Yeah.
I think a lot of companies right now are struggling in general with talent acquisition. How does talent acquisition affect business strategies in general?
Oh my God, you name it, Kim. Seriously. Everything that we do, I always tell my leaders and my clients, any organization is only as good as the people.
Hmm.
So if you cannot get anyone good, anyone emotionally resilient, and another quality that I would look for, kind of like in line with what we are
Yeah.
talking about here, is the learning agility. How can actually the entire business be resilient and be able to adapt to all these unexpected changes? And so when we talk about business strategy, I always go back and say, actually, how should we define strategy, right? It's such a big term. We always
Yeah.
talk about it, but what exactly is strategy? Strategy is simply, a coherent set of actions supported by a well-crafted structure.
Hmm.
So if you're talking about coherence, then you need a coherent team.
Yeah.
So what I see from my work and a lot of the people sharing with me is that there are a lot of broken links when the talent acquisition design is not being well executed or not well designed in the first place. And
Yeah.
so when they go fight the battle, those things are kind of like here and there and broken pieces. So how could they actually execute a strategy smoothly, right? And then you see all the complaints. The finances complain, the ID complaints, whatever. But in the very first place, people should sit down together and say, what is it that we are doing in here? And hiring is the same thing. Coherent set of actions. Are we actually having an attractive employer branding? Is it attractive enough? We think it's attractive, but it's attractive in terms of our employees' eyes. Are our employees aware of actually who we are, the people that we want to hire, right? So there's a lot of the preparation work in beforehand. But then what I see is that still a lot of people still approach hiring as in like a firefighting action or a piece of work. Oh, Lorraine, I need to get off my phone call. I'm interviewing someone in 10 minutes. I'm just going to read their CV. I'm like, darling, this is not the way to work. It's not the way to get the right talent if you're interviewing someone 10 minutes and you're only reading the CV 10 minutes before. This is not the way that you go about it, especially you're doing a senior hire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like, I mean, the execution of strategies in general is always challenging, right? It's challenging, especially from the talent acquisition perspective. What about from the organizational design perspective?
Um, the organizational design perspective is also a key component in it because what kind of hierarchy are we putting in place? Or are we having no hierarchy, right? Especially these days, all the hybrid work, remote work, and Airbnb just announced you can forever just work from home. Our entire organization can be a work from home organization. How do you design that, right? And how do you actually support the execution of your actions? Which I believe a lot of organizations, the ultimate actions that is to support the goal, which is to make profits and to grow.
Hmm.
And so it's the hierarchies, the layers, reporting structure, helping you to communicate that goal, especially when you're having remote team, you're having different people working together. different languages for a lot of global organizations, especially for the travel industry. How do you do that, right, with time zone differences? And so, and a lot of the times when we're talking about the traditional structures, right, the hierarchy, the top down, the matrix, sometimes what I see from my work is the matrix structure too matrix for people to communicate effectively, or
Hmm.
is the hierarchy still, or the structure still very too traditional for people to have the psychological safety to test out new products? Right?
Hmm.
If your business strategy is to pivot, is to kind of like see what the market tells you, what your next product it's like, or how the customer feedback it's like for a new product, it's the organizational structure designed in a way that allows the feedback to be communicated effectively and efficiently to the back end. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
that
questions
makes
behind
sense.
it. Yeah.
Wow. And when you're developing a strategy, how do you maintain a balance with focus?
I would always say right now to have the element of well-being in it.
Hmm.
Why I'm saying so is because, of course, any strategy for us is to, like I said, right, to make profit, to grow, to get into another market, to build a new product, whatever that is. But how are we balancing our organizational, i.e., the employees' well-being while we're doing it? Because sometimes what we have been hearing in different parts of the world is that when one company is so focused in achieving certain market share, certain year-on-year growth, certain, like stakeholders return, whatever you call it, they kind of like put the organizational well-being at the back burner or in the lowest priority. And then what happens is you have a lot of attrition rate. You have a lot of people calling sick. You have a lot of people complaining on different websites saying that it's a toxic culture. There were a lot of employees who always got like, brain fog and getting not very, very well in what they do. They're not having enough support with all this remote work. And so it goes back to the design of the execution of strategy. So if your employees are sick, how can you make the entire team coherent to carry out the coherent set of actions, right?
Yeah.
So that balancing focus is, are we taking care of employees in terms of our own health? Because I don't know about other people. I'm only 35, but I can feel the fact that I can no longer work as hard as I was at 25. Right now, I can share with people that I manage my day right now by actually, and this might surprise you, Kim, by my eyes' well-being.
Hmm.
Why I'm saying this is that because right now, for a lot of our work, we're doing a lot of remote team meetings, right? So we're
Yeah.
doing a lot of Zoom work and Teams work. So what we're going to do is basically having our eyes staring at the screen longer than we expected. Definitely when we were in high school, we don't need to stare at our screens like this long. And so what I've been struggling for over the last 2 years because of COVID is the fact that my eyes got fatigue and got issues way more often than before COVID because of all these long hours of Zooms meeting and proposal work and whatever. And so right now I structure my day. How do I, for example, take my company's example, balancing focus while executing my strategy is I structure my day according to how long my eyes can stand staring at the screen. So I
Yeah.
schedule the breaks. I schedule the structures.
That's wonderful. One of the strategies I use is I use obviously a calendar, where people can
Yeah.
just schedule. And I actually put a maximum on every day.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my calendar reads that I will only accept so many meetings a day. And I've tried, and I continue to work on this. I try to get in the habit even to block my day when it starts to get full, even outside of that, because the problem is you just don't have enough time in one day to make it all work. So then you feel like everything's jammed together and it's overwhelming. And so I think it's hard to teach that. I've spent a lot of time teaching our team blocking and trying to use the concept of blocking, big groups at time, with even circles, just, hey, make this time, like you mentioned, writing proposals, make this time prospecting, make this time client work, because
Exactly.
then you don't feel so overwhelmed. But it's tough. I mean, I love the concept of well-being. Do you have any other ideas for business leaders right now on what to do kind of about well-being. I think everybody hears the word, but besides asking somebody, how are you feeling? They don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It's like a lot of the people are still getting started. At least they are aware of it, but they're not doing enough. I think the number one step for any leaders out there to create a thriving organization is to move beyond just another yoga session or another test for your employee, but to really get together to actually embed this time of like what you said, time boxing, time
Yeah.
management, with that well-being in mind, so that you can actually create what we call level three, the ultimate goal of creating a thriving organization. It's because everything that we do, besides just to think about how much profit we're going to make, we're going to actually think about and actually encourage our staff, like what you said, Kim, I think is wonderful. Is, time boxing your day by reminding yourself this is the time maximum that your body can stay paying attention to something and your eyes can stay that focused on your screen.
Yeah.
And then after that, you gotta take a break, go for a walk, go for a drink, go for your early lunch break, go do some yoga during your lunch break, whatever, and then come back and refresh yourself. I
Yeah.
think this is a very important commitment is that the leaders themselves, they have to walk the talk. Like you, I mean, right? You block your day, you're showing your
Yeah.
staff that you're blocking a day, and
Yeah.
then you're also encouraging your staff to time box a day to kind of say, you know what, I want you to be productive as ever, but I also don't want you to be burned out as well.
Yeah.
This is the level two. Before we
Yeah.
get to the level three, which is a lot more work.
I love it. And I think a lot of people have to, in many way, understand challenges kind of below the surface level. Um, what are some elements, important elements to use for that?
The number one thing that I use, and I also work with my clients to do, is don't just rely everything that you read or hear on the news.
Yeah, such great advice. It's so true because a lot of it
Today,
depends on the source. And, it's so funny. I have a crazy mom, and my mom, I will get these random tests throughout the day, and she still doesn't understand that I have to work. But it'll be from this source called like ZYQ dot XYZ. And she's like, look what's going on. And I'm like, Mom, you need to look at your
yeah,
source of that information. Like you need to calm down. It's okay. The world is not going to explode. And it gets exhausting. But it's so true because so many things. The
yeah,
source of the information. A lot of times it's skewed to whether that's making that person look great, that company look great, that toothpaste look great, right? Whatever the case may be, it's really challenging and it causes a lot of problems.
yeah. After not relying on just what we see and hear on the news, I think the most important thing that we do is to listen and observe.
Yeah,
You got to have your own perspective. And together with your, you just mentioned the same, the time boxing strategy, the well-being in mind. It sounds like, we're talking something very simple, like your mother is a woman, but actually it's not. It takes a lot of time for us to practice, especially, we've been crammed into, the more crammed your day is, the more back-to-back meetings, the more productive you are, the kind of old world. When we start to kind of like pace ourselves and listen to observe, we as leaders are creating a space between ourselves and the rest so that you create the kind of perspective that keep things in perspective that we need
yeah,
so that we can generate our own insights and not push ourselves and the others into crazy world.
yeah. So true. Oh my gosh. It's very interesting out there. CEOs are really struggling. We hope we're on the other side of the pandemic. Nobody knows what the future looks like. Obviously, it caught us off guard. Do you have any advice for business leaders today as they kind of navigate what's next?
It's counterintuitive when what you just said, because you just said it's kind of like very
We don't
uncertain,
know.
predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was thinking that the number one piece of advice that I would actually give a lot of my peers is We have to see the whole picture and manage our business and ourselves by design, not by default. What I mean is, see the whole picture is to kind of add on what we just said, to listen and observe the space, to actually what else is going on, what else is not changing. This is interesting bits, right? We always say, what's the coming trend? What is changing? What's the next vegan food? What's the next whatever? No.
Yeah.
What is not changing? What is not changing? Why? I know that I caught you a little bit like, what's Lauren talking about? The eye well-being bit. I actually caught my own coach by surprise when I say this. We can actually, let me take a metaphor in here and share with people. We can go to the fitness trainers and have our cores trained so that we can hold the plank for 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes, right? But we cannot train our eye muscles to hold longer staring at the screen without getting fatigued. And when I visited the eye doctors more frequently for the last 2 years, that's why I realized, oh my goodness, this is my aha moment. That's why I time box my day and say, if the doctors are saying that, after staring at the screen for a certain amount of time, you should take a break, I should time box my day according to my eye's well-being because I cannot train my eye muscle to stay at the screen for longer. It's not like my core. I can train my
Yeah, it's
core.
not your plank.
Yes,
Exactly.
not my plank. Our eyes are not our plank. Number one. So this is actually part of the see the whole picture thing, right? What is not changing? For example, our eye muscles are not changing. We cannot change them. The other thing by managed by design is the fact that if we take this whole well-being element, this whole person element of what is, and also with what is not changing mindset into here, a lot of the times, even though that there are a lot more unpredictability, uncertainty, and FUKR is the old word right now. The new word apparently is banny. I don't know whether you've heard of it. Brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible, you name it. But I think, it's actually managed by design, not by default. Now, what I mean is there are certain things that you can put in place to make your days more manageable, to make your processes more manageable, so that even though that you have non-linear, anxious, incomprehensible accidents happening around the world, you have the energy, the resource to manage it. You're not managing by default. Managing by default meaning you're responding to it. No, I mean, you're reacting to it.
Right.
What we're advocating is you have the space to respond and the energy and your eye muscle to respond to
Yeah, exactly. Or you could do planks at lunch, right? And we could
it.
work it all
Oh,
together. Oh, well, our goal with Evolve is to enable business leaders to learn, connect, and grow together. And Lorraine, thank you so much for talking to us, for sharing some of your day with us and your a lot of amazing insights. And everybody, please follow us on social media and continue and stay tuned as our series evolves with you.